Your dad never worked with you? I tried, sweetheart. I really did. I taught him more than once, but every time I gave him real responsibility, he found a reason to walk away. He said construction work was too hard, that he had other plans, that he'd make his own path. And did he? Caroline asked, her voice carrying a kind of grown-up clarity that cracked my heart. What do you think, darling? In 15 years of marriage, have you ever seen your father bring home a paycheck? Caroline slowly shook her head. Never. Anytime we need something, Mom just says, let's ask Grandma, maybe she can help. That doesn't mean your dad can't work, I said gently. It means he chose not to, because he knew I would always step in and fix the financial mess. And Mom? Thomas asked. Your mother is bright. She speaks 3 languages, has a degree in business administration, and before she married your dad, she worked at a marketing firm. But the moment they got married, she decided it was easier to live off my money than to use her own abilities. The children looked at each other, sharing an understanding far too heavy for their age. It broke me to reveal this truth, but they needed to hear it. After a long, aching silence, Caroline whispered, Grandma, we haven't been fair to you either. Her honesty startled me. You're children, sweetheart. You aren't expected to understand adult finances. But you can learn something from this. What can we learn? She asked. That everything in life costs something, and someone always pays that cost. That money doesn't show up out of thin air, it takes work and effort. And that respect, real respect, is the foundation of every relationship, even within a family. Thomas lifted his hand like he was in school. I want to learn to work. I want to help you at your company, Grandma. His sincerity moved me deeply. You're too young for construction, Thomas. But you can start with small things. Manage your allowance. Help around the house to earn a little extra. Learn that valuable things take effort. And me? Caroline asked softly. I'm already 14. You can get a weekend job. Babysit, help the neighbors with groceries, work a shift at a store. You can start saving for the things you want. Thomas frowned. So, does this mean you won't help us anymore? It means I'll help you differently, I said. Instead of giving you everything without effort, I'll teach you how to earn it yourselves. Instead of paying for every whim, I'll make sure you have what you truly need. And instead of letting your parents use you as a shield for their laziness, I'll show you what a responsible, hard-working family looks like. Caroline nodded slowly. That actually sounds better, Grandma. And I feel awful knowing you paid for everything while Mom spoke so badly of you. You feel bad about that? I asked softly. Yes, she admitted. Because it means we were living a lie. Mom always told us we were a prosperous family, that Dad had a successful business, that we were lucky. But it was all your money. And knowing that now, how does it make you feel? Ashamed, she whispered, and angry. If I had known the truth, I would have been more grateful. I would have thanked you for everything instead of acting like it was nothing. Thomas nodded hard. Yeah, like when you took us to Disney World last year. Mom told us she saved for a long time for that trip, Thomas said. But really, you paid for everything, didn't you? I did, I answered. The flights, the hotel, the park tickets, the meals, the souvenirs, every penny. It came to $8,000. $8,000? Thomas blurted. That's a lot of money. Why would Mom lie to us? Because it was easier for you to see her as the generous mother who gave you wonderful vacations instead of admitting she didn't contribute a single dollar. That's lying, Caroline said, outrage sharpening her voice. I hate that they lied to us for so long. Your mother didn't lie with the intention of hurting you, I said gently, though deep down, I wasn't sure I believed it. But she did hide the truth, and that truth would have helped you understand your family better. What happens now? Thomas asked quietly. Now, I said, your parents are going to have to learn to be responsible adults. They'll have to look for jobs, move somewhere they can afford, and raise two wonderful children using their own income. And if they can't do it? Caroline whispered. They can, I assured her. Your parents are smart and capable. They've just chosen the easy road for far too long. When the easy road disappears, people learn to stand on their own feet. Do you think they'll be mad at us for talking about all this? Thomas asked. They might be upset, I admitted. But you haven't done anything wrong. You simply heard the truth, and knowing the truth will help you make better choices as you grow. After they left that afternoon, I sat alone in my living room replaying our conversation. Watching that slow shift in their eyes, seeing them finally start to understand the reality of their home, filled me with a mix of sorrow and hope. Sorrow because they had been forced to face painful truths far too young. Hope because, at last, someone in that household was beginning to understand the importance of work and respect. Around 8 that evening, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but I picked up. Rosalia, a woman's voice said. For a moment, I didn't recognize it. Who is this? It's Brittany. I'm calling from my neighbor's phone, because you disconnected our lines. Ah, Brittany. I spoke with a calmness I knew would irritate her. How can I help you? How can you help me? She repeated, almost choking on the words. Rosalia, you just destroyed your own family. Do you have any idea what you've done? I know exactly what I've done, I replied. I stopped financing the lifestyle of two perfectly capable adults who've chosen not to work for 15 years. You can't do this. The children don't deserve this, she snapped. You're absolutely right, I said. The children didn't deserve to grow up in a house built on lies, where they were taught that money appears out of thin air, and where disrespecting the person who pays for everything is perfectly acceptable. I never disrespected you, Rosalia, she insisted weakly. Last night, I reminded her, you told me, right in front of your guests, that I would never be a real mother. After 15 years of covering every bill, every whim, every made-up emergency. Silence. I could hear her breathing, fast and shaky. I was drunk, she whispered at last. I didn't mean it. Oh, you meant it, I replied. You felt that way for years. Last night, you finally found the courage to say it. My only regret is that it took me so long to hear you. Please, Rosalia, can we fix this? Can I apologize? I can change. Apologize? Change? I let out a small, humorless laugh. Brittany, you're not sorry for what you said. You're sorry the easy money stopped. If my credit card still worked, this conversation wouldn't be happening. That's not true, she murmured. It's completely true, I said. Tell me, Brittany, when was the last time you called just to ask how I was? When was the last time you invited me to lunch without some financial crisis waiting in the background? Another long silence. That's what I thought, I said quietly. To you, I've never been family. I've been an ATM with feelings. And last night, you made it painfully clear you don't even respect those. The children need you, she said in a trembling voice. The children will still have me, I replied. But they won't have the grandmother who pays for everything while being treated like an inconvenience. They'll have the grandmother who loves them enough to teach them real values. What are we supposed to do then? She cried. Ethan hasn't worked in years. I don't have recent job experience. Brittany, you're 37 years old, you have a university degree, and you speak 3 languages. Ethan is 39, perfectly healthy, and grew up in a family of builders. You're not being asked to do anything millions of people don't do every single day. What's that supposed to mean? It means you work. You support yourselves. But we can't maintain this lifestyle with normal jobs. Exactly, I said. You'll have to learn to live within your real means, just like everyone else. This is cruel, Rosalia. You're punishing all of us because of something I said while I was drunk. I'm not punishing anyone, I said firmly. I'm refusing to be part of an unhealthy arrangement anymore. For 15 years, I enabled a lifestyle you couldn't afford. And for 15 years, the respect you showed me dwindled. That's not true. It is, I said. Do you want to know how much I've spent on your household in the past 15 years? I don't know exactly. $422,000, I answered. Not counting birthdays, Christmas, vacations, or emergencies. Just basic monthly expenses. A strangled gasp escaped her. And do you know how many times you've invited me to dinner to thank me? How many times you've planned something thoughtful for me, paid for with your own money? Silence. That number is 0, Brittany. Not once. Every dinner, every celebration, every gift I've received from your family was ultimately paid for with my own money. I didn't know you were keeping track. I wasn't, I said. Not until last night. Last night, I finally sat down and went through every bank record. And for the first time in 15 years, I saw the full truth. Rosalia, please. Give me one more chance. I can change. We can change. One more chance? I echoed. Brittany, you've had 15 years of chances. 15 years to show gratitude. 15 years to contribute to your own household. 15 years to treat me with the basic respect any human being deserves, especially someone who sacrificed as much as I have. What do you want me to do? She cried. Kneel? Beg you? Is that what you want? What I want, I said with a heaviness I could feel in my bones, is impossible. I want back 15 years of my life. I want back the respect I lost for my own son for allowing you to treat me this way. I want back the dignity I surrendered every time I pretended your little insults, disguised as jokes, didn't hurt. I never insulted you. No? I asked quietly. What about every time I walked into a family gathering and heard, "Here comes the Savior"? What would we do without generous Rosalia? Thank God someone can fix our lives? Those were compliments. They were cutting sarcasm, and you know it. Every one of those comments was a reminder that you saw me as the pathetic relative who had to buy affection because she didn't have a life of her own. I never thought that. Brittany, I said softly, last night you said exactly that in front of strangers. You said I would never be a real mother. Do you know what that means to a woman who lost her husband at 49 and spent the next 20 years caring for her family? I heard her sobbing now, unrestrained. It means, I continued, my voice steady, that after 2 decades of sacrifice, my own daughter-in-law believes everything I have done is worthless, because I didn't give birth to my grandchildren. I didn't mean it, she whispered. Oh, Brittany, I said gently, of course you meant it. And you know what, Brittany? I said softly. You're right. I'll never be their biological mother. But it's also true that their biological mother has never given them what I have, financial stability, a good education, real opportunities, and above all, the example of what it means to work for the life you want. Please, Rosalia, the kids are asking what's going to happen. I don't know what to tell them. Tell them the truth, Brittany. For the first time in their lives, tell them the whole truth about your finances. Explain that you're moving because you never paid for the house you live in. Tell them they have to change their lifestyle because you never worked to support it. That's going to traumatize them. Do you know what truly traumatizes children? I asked. Growing up in a house full of lies. Growing up believing money appears out of nowhere. Growing up without learning the value of work and effort. That is real trauma, Brittany. I can't do this alone. You won't, I said. You'll be with Ethan, your husband. Remember the vow you made? For better or for worse? It's time you learn what for worse actually means. After hanging up, I poured a glass of wine and stepped onto my terrace. The city lights flickered on as the sun dipped below the skyline, and for the first time in years, the view didn't remind me of someone else's responsibilities waiting for me in the morning. There were no unpaid bills that weren't mine. No made-up emergencies. No desperate phone calls. Just silence. And beauty. My phone buzzed with a message from Caroline. Grandma, I talked to Thomas. We understand everything now. We want to ask if we can visit you on Saturday, alone. Without Mom and Dad. We want to know the real grandma, not just the one who paid for everything. Her words brought tears to my eyes. After all the toxicity of the past few days, that message reminded me why everything I was doing mattered. I replied instantly. Of course, my loves. Come Saturday at 10 a.m. We'll have breakfast, and then I'll tell you stories about your Grandpa Robert you've never heard. That night, I slept deeply, for the second night in a row. Something I hadn't managed in years. On Friday morning, Greg called with new information. Rosalia, Ethan came to my office yesterday afternoon. He wants to negotiate the eviction terms. Oh? And what does he want? He says he's willing to get a job if you give them 6 more months in the house and temporarily reinstate the credit cards. I burst into laughter. Greg, do you realize what that means? My 39-year-old son is negotiating getting a job as if he's doing us all a favor. Yes, Greg said dryly. The irony isn't lost on me. What do you want me to tell him? Tell him the offer is interesting. But he needs to prove he's serious before I consider anything. What kind of proof? That he has a real job and has received his first paycheck before the 30 days are up. If, by day 29, he can show me a pay stub, I'll think about giving them an extra 30 days to get organized. But the credit cards stay cancelled. Permanently. Understood. I also found something else. Greg paused. Rosalia, they opened credit accounts in your name. 3 department stores. What? I felt ice spread through my chest. Nordstrom, Macy's, and Saks Fifth Avenue. They used your financial information as backing. The total debt is about $50,000. It felt like a slap. Is that even legal? It's fraud, he said. But since you've been covering all their expenses for years, prosecuting could be difficult. However, you can dispute the debts and shut the cards down immediately. Do it, I said. And Greg, check for anything else we might not know about. If they've used my identity once, they may have used it again. After I hung up, I sat at my desk, trying to absorb the weight of this new betrayal. Not only had they lived off my generosity for 15 years, they had committed financial fraud in my name. The wound was deeper than I ever imagined. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in decades. I picked up the phone and called my old friend, Isabel Miller, a woman I'd known in college but lost touch with once I became absorbed in raising, supporting, and ultimately enabling my parasitic family. Rosalia, she answered, stunned. My goodness, how many years has it been? 10? 15? Too many, Isabel, I said. I've been living in a bubble, and I finally woke up. I told her everything. Every detail. Even the discovery of the credit fraud. Isabel listened quietly, murmuring disbelief every so often. Rosalia, she said after I finished speaking, do you understand that what you've described isn't a dysfunctional family? It's full-blown financial abuse. Financial abuse? I repeated. Yes, Isabel said firmly. When someone manipulates your emotions to access your money, when they use your generosity as a tool of control, when they commit fraud using your identity, that's not love. That's abuse. Her words hit me like a shockwave. She had finally named the thing I had felt, deeply, painfully, but had never been able to articulate. For 15 years, I wasn't the generous matriarch holding my family together. I was a victim of systematic financial abuse. And do you know what's most insidious about this kind of abuse? Isabel continued. The victim always feels guilty for defending themselves. They convince you that you're selfish for wanting boundaries. That you're cruel for protecting what you've worked for. That you're a bad person for refusing to be exploited indefinitely. That's exactly how I've felt all week, I admitted quietly. Sometimes I wonder if I'm being too hard on them. Rosalia, listen carefully, she said. A mother who supports her adult son for a year while he finds a job is being generous. A mother who supports him for 5 years is being complacent. But a mother who supports her son for 15 years, while he lives in luxury without working, is being abused. Her words sliced straight through the fog. For the first time, someone had put into perspective what had really been happening all these years. Isabel, can I ask you something? Of course. All these years we lost contact, did you ever wonder why I vanished? She sighed. Yes. I wondered it often. You used to be so independent, so confident. You had plans, ambition, a social life. And then suddenly, every time I invited you somewhere, you had a family responsibility. And what did you think? I asked. I thought you had become one of those mothers who lose themselves in their children, she admitted gently. But now I understand, you weren't devoted. You were trapped. You had fallen into an abusive relationship with your own family. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in 15 years. I made social plans that had nothing to do with my family. Isabel invited me to an art exhibition the following Friday, and I accepted without hesitation. Without having to check whether Ethan needed money. Without worrying about Brittany's next dramatic emergency. Without feeling guilty for choosing myself. On Saturday morning, Caroline and Thomas arrived exactly at 10. I welcomed them with a full breakfast, pancakes, scrambled eggs, bacon, fresh orange juice, strawberries with cream. But the real gift was that, for the first time in years, I could enjoy a meal with my grandchildren without their parents complaining about money in the background. Grandma, Caroline said as she cut into her pancakes, I need to tell you something. I lifted my eyes. What is it, darling? Last night, I heard Mom talking to her sister. She said you'd gone crazy. That you were being cruel for no reason. And what do you think about that? I asked calmly. She took a breath. I think Mom doesn't understand what gratitude is. She glanced at Thomas, who nodded. Since we talked the other day, she continued, Thomas and I have been thinking about everything you told us. And we realized, we never thanked you for anything. How does that make you feel? I asked softly. Bad, Caroline admitted, her voice trembling with honesty. But we also decided we want to change that, Caroline continued softly. We want to learn to be truly grateful, not only when we need something. And we want to learn how to work, Thomas added, his voice full of enthusiasm. Caroline's going to look for a babysitting job, and I want to help the neighbor with her groceries. I looked at both of them with genuine pride. In one honest conversation, they had shown more maturity than their parents had in 15 years. You know what? I told them, smiling, I think you're going to be just fine, no matter what happens with your parents. You really think so? Caroline asked. I'm certain, I said. Because you've learned something your parents never did, that valuable things take effort, and that respect is earned through actions, not words. 3 months later, I found myself sitting on the terrace of a little cafe in Florence, watching the Arno River glow under the afternoon sun. In front of me sat a perfect cappuccino and a book of poetry I had been meaning to read for years. For the first time in decades, my time belonged entirely to me. The trip to Europe had been a spontaneous choice. After selling the construction company Robert and I built together, I realized I had more money than I'd ever need. But more importantly, I finally had what I'd been missing for years. The freedom to choose how to live. My phone buzzed with a message from Caroline. Grandma, I got my second job. I babysit 3 afternoons a week now, and I help at the bookstore on Saturdays. I saved $200 this month. Thomas is mowing lawns for Mr. Davis. Dad finally got a job at a construction company, and Mom is working part-time at a translation office. It's strange, but I think we're happier now than when everything was handed to us. Her words filled me with a deep, quiet satisfaction. I had made the right choice, even if it had been the hardest decision of my life. 2 weeks earlier, Ethan had called me for the first time in months. His voice sounded different, steadier, older. "Mom," he said, "I want you to know I got a job at Rivera Construction. I'm starting as a laborer, but the foreman says I can move up if I work hard." "I'm glad to hear that, son. And I want to apologize," he added. "Not for what's happening now, but for all the years before. You were right. I'm a 39-year-old man who never learned responsibility because I always knew you'd fix everything." "And how do you feel now?" I asked him gently, "having to fix things yourself?" "Terrified," he admitted with a nervous laugh. "But also, proud. When I got my first paycheck, I felt something I've never felt before. That money was mine. I earned it. And Brittany, well, she's struggling more than I am. She's still angry with you. She thinks you were too harsh. But she's working now, and the kids respect her more because they see her trying." "I'm glad the whole family is working," I told him. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Are you ever going to forgive us completely? Is there any chance we can be a normal family again?" I had thought carefully before answering. "Ethan, forgiveness isn't given once and for all. It's built, day by day, through consistency, respect, and responsibility. If you keep showing growth, if you keep treating me with the respect I deserve, then yes, we can rebuild our relationship." I paused. "But understand this, I'll never support you financially again. I'll help you in other ways, healthier ways. The kind of help that makes you stronger, not weaker. If the grandchildren need something for their education, if there's a real medical emergency, or if you show that you've been saving and working hard toward a specific goal, then I'll consider helping. But I will never again support capable adults who choose not to support themselves." Sitting in that cozy cafe in Florence, I smiled, remembering that conversation. 90 days had passed since I cut off all funding, and my family had not only survived, they were thriving in ways that would have been impossible while living off my money. Greg had sent me a report the previous week. Ethan had earned 3 raises in just 2 months for his diligence and work ethic. Brittany had been promoted to coordinator at the translation office. The children were adjusting beautifully to their new public school. Caroline had been elected class representative, and Thomas had joined the soccer team. But the most impressive change wasn't just professional or academic. They had learned to live within a budget. Brittany had sold her luxury car and bought a used but reliable one. They had moved into a cozy 2-bedroom apartment, smaller than my house, but fully paid for with their own money. They had learned to cook at home instead of dining out, and had discovered that some of the most meaningful family experiences didn't require spending a fortune: walks in the park, game nights, and homemade meals prepared together. During one of our weekly calls, Caroline said, "Grandma, it's strange, but I think I finally understand what it really means to be a family. Before, when we had everything we wanted, we never appreciated anything. Now, even when we buy something small, like pizza on Friday night, it feels like a real celebration." Hearing that, I felt a quiet pride settle in my chest. This transformation confirmed I had made the right decision. My grandchildren were learning lessons that would last a lifetime: the value of work, the satisfaction of earning your own way, the importance of gratitude, and the difference between wants and needs. As for me, these 3 months had been transformative in ways I never anticipated. I had rediscovered who I was when I wasn't defined by my financial utility to others. I had reconnected with old friends, explored hobbies I had abandoned decades ago, and traveled to places I had long dreamed of visiting. But more importantly, I had reclaimed my dignity. That afternoon in Florence, as the sun set over the Arno River, I called Isabel. "How's your European adventure going?" she asked, her voice full of joy. "It's been transformative," I said. "But Isabel, I think I'm ready to come home." "Ready to leave beautiful Italy?" she asked, surprised. "No, not at all. I feel so good about myself that I no longer need to run from my old life. I'm ready to build a new life at home, a life where I am the protagonist, not just the financier of other people's lives." "And my family?" "They'll be fine. In fact, they're better than they've been in years. When I return, our relationships will be different, built on respect and genuine love, not economic dependence. A relationship based on mutual respect and genuine love, not economic dependence. That night, in my hotel overlooking the Florence Cathedral, I opened my personal diary for the first time in decades. Today, I turned 70 in one of the most beautiful cities in the world, but the most beautiful thing I've experienced wasn't the art or the breathtaking landscapes. It was the feeling of having regained my life. For 15 years, I had been a shadow of myself, living solely to serve others who didn't value me. I believed I was being a good mother and grandmother, but in reality, I was failing as a teacher of life. Now, my grandchildren call me to share their achievements, not to ask for money. My son speaks to me with respect because he has learned that respect is earned. My daughter-in-law is finally beginning to understand that true motherhood isn't about making others pay for your children, it's about teaching responsibility, independence, and integrity. For the first time in decades, I am free. Not through revenge, but through liberation. Not through cruelty, but through tough love, the kind of love that sometimes requires saying no to teach important lessons. Tomorrow I return home, but I will not be the same woman who left 3 months ago. I return as Rosalia Jenkins, successful, independent, loving yet firm, a grandmother who no longer needs to buy anyone's love, because I have learned the most important lesson of all: the love you have to purchase is never worth its cost. I closed the diary and looked out my hotel window one last time. Tomorrow the journey home would begin, but I was no longer the woman who had fled a humiliating dinner 3 months earlier. I had found something far more valuable than all the money I had spent in 15 years of misguided generosity. I had found my dignity, and this time, no one could take it from me. Did you enjoy my story? Where are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you'd like to support me so I can continue sharing stories like this, you can send a super thanks. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your kindness and support. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. And don't forget, on the screen, you'll find 2 more life stories I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Subscribe and join me for the next life story, shared with love and respect.